Welcome back to Solo Spotlight, the podcast where we delve into artists who are shaping the soundscapes of our time. I'm your host, Ryan MacDougall, and today I'm thrilled to be joined by my guest, Cheryl, the front woman of Valley of Despair. We just recently had the pleasure of witnessing Valley of Despair perform live at the Rec Room here in Edmonton. A very amazing performance, nothing short of electrifying, raw energy, powerful vocals, and a stage presence that commanded attention. Thank you for joining. Let me check the phones on here. Almost forgot about that. I want to start off by saying that we went to that Rec Room performance. Amazing. It was amazing. I had a blast, and I think you got. I think you got every band performed amazing. Sugar Wash was great. You guys were great. The way that you guys were able to connect with the audience, even as someone that's been following your band for not a length of time, I was still able to feel that energy.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Perfect.
I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So amazing performance. And thank you for sharing that with us and allowing us to show up. My co-host for the other podcast, Richard, he also had a blast. And yeah, I'm excited to sit with you today and kind of go through with that. Everything it takes to get on a stage and perform and do that kind of stuff. Because in our other conversations, you alluded to the fact that you're kind of like introverted. So this must be like not only accomplishment as like a group or as a band, it's probably like a personal accomplishment as well to be like, hey, like I'm kind of putting myself out there and like I'm doing what I really love to do, and I'm kind of like I'm getting over.
Like it definitely gets easier like as you go along. That just takes time and experience and like learning to trust that like the crowd is there because they want to have fun. They're not there at a local show to judge you. They're there because they want to have a good experience. So it just takes time, and I've been learning that if I try to get them to clap, they probably will, and if I ask them to cheer, they probably will. So
did you find that type of like fan interaction had to come with like that stage presence where like at the start when you're doing these live performances, it's more or less like I want to get a good show out? Like what was something that was easy for you to kind of pick up in terms of like fan engagement?
like I guess like it's just like the between the song things, like usually like my hands are pretty occupied when I'm playing guitar like during the song,
Right.
but just like between songs, like it's just figuring out like the usual things that you ask people to do. Like my favorite thing to do, like depending on the show, is like to do the like the rock star like, oh no, I can't hear you, and then they're like, oh, okay, we'll cheer louder.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of thing is just fun for everyone.
You got the thing is when you go to stuff like this is I find that you just have to have a level of buy-in where you're like, hey, like I'm here to enjoy myself.
Yeah.
I'm here. Like maybe I'm not the big like headbanging, cheering, like losing it, but it's like you kind of know to enjoy the best of that experience. You need a little bit of buy-in. Like you gotta push yourself a bit. So
yeah, the crowd can tell if you're not having fun, and they can pick up on your energy if you're like anxious or nervous. So
Right.
definitely like trying to like rein that in and like exude confidence. Like that's something that helps the crowd have a better time as well.
And do you find when it's like multiple bands playing, do you find that like it can kind of shake you a bit if like, you know what I mean? It's not like a soft entry where you're like,
No, we haven't had the experience that we've ever had like a not good performance before us. Like Edmonton has so much talent in it. Like we're just really honored to get to share the stage with so many bands. And like the thing about the metal scene is that it's a community. It's not like pop or rock that like everyone's trying to compete with each other. Like in metal, everyone's trying to include each other. So
Yeah.
we're kind of cheering each other on, and we're like really stoked on everyone's performances. And like people from the other bands are usually in the front row like headbanging to support you. So yeah, it's the energy just kind of feeds into each other.
and what did you find about the venue? Did you find that was like a good? I didn't even know the Rec Room had
Yeah,
like a
that
theater
was
hall.
our first show there, and the sound was really awesome. Like I didn't even know they had that like amazing room down there. So
Yeah.
yeah, that was an incredible venue to play.
Yeah, and we kind of talked about after your performance, like that was a particularly like bigger event for you. So like how in comparison to your other events with that event, like would you say double the crowd? Would you say
It really depends. For our EP release show, I think that we oversold the venue a little bit. Like
Right.
we packed like Rendezvous Pub in Edmonton. There were so many people there. I think there were definitely more at the Rec Room, but it kind of depends. Like there's definitely a different feel the bigger the venue. It makes it a little bit less intimate. For
Right.
sure when there's people like up there and down there
Yeah.
versus the pub shows. But
Right. Like that was a great show. Um, Now talking about it, like what when you're preparing for a show like this, is there anything you have to do to like shake off the nerves?
Um, I just need to make sure like I warm up properly. Like it's doing the kind of vocals I do. I do a lot of belting and I do the harsh vocals. I have to do a warm up. So and I need to make sure I'm not talking to people before the set because if I do and I'm like talking over the volume in the venue, I tend to like you can blow out your voice before your set even just, projecting. And I have a very quiet voice as well, so I need to be really careful. So usually I'll like run out to my car and I'll do some like weird vocal warm-ups and stuff.
Right.
So I just need to know that like my body is prepared for the performance.
Emily actually brought this question. Yeah, what are like the long-term effects that you found?
Long term, like as long as you're doing it correctly, you shouldn't have any long term effects. Like as I said, like most singers actually blow out their voice like at the merch after shouting and kind of like projecting over people. But if you're doing your technique properly, you shouldn't feel anything in your throat when you do it. Like you shouldn't be spitting blood after doing the
Right.
growls or anything like that. I actually find the belting is harder on my voice than the harsh growls.
Oh yeah.
It's just a very different technique. So.
Do you find like when you're performing songs that have such an emotional investment, do you find like it's actually not only like the performance itself, but do you find there's a lot of like emotional drain through the performance where like you get off stage and you're like,
On stage, not so much because that's like usually like the emotional thing comes like when I'm songwriting, and that's
right,
that's when I feel it when I record it like for the album. But then after that, it all becomes technical, and it
right.
just becomes like, hey, I have to perform this. This is the note I have to hit, and stuff like that. So, and if you're too emotional, you're gonna end up hurting your voice as well, or you're gonna end up using improper techniques.
Another question that we even had too was that we found that during your guys' songs, like you guys did a really good job at giving room for like the instruments to breathe. And was that a deliberate choice of allowing these like longer riffs and like more like solos and stuff like that? And is that more of like a musical structure thing, or is that more of a skill based thing? Of if I didn't have the right people that could do the solos, when I just couldn't have it in there.
Right. Well, I mean, like I usually write the songs thinking about having a solo section. Like most of the bands I listen to, like in the metalcore genres and stuff like that, like there's usually always a solo section, and I think part of that also comes from going to McEwen for like jazz guitar. Like half of that program was like, hey, improvise. Like we did a whole class on improvising and stuff like that. So it's very important musically for me to have that stuff in the
Right.
songs. And
It kept it very dynamic and it allowed like every member to kind of have their shine, right? Like that
yeah,
that's what I was really that was really cool.
it gives me some breathing room too, so I don't need to
Yeah,
sing the entire time. I can be like, hey, I'm gonna
exactly.
take a vocal break. You solo for a bit.
Yeah. Yeah, and would did a lot of your band members come in with like a high wealth of experience?
Everybody had been playing in bands for quite a few years. And like our bassist also went to McEwen with me. We
Okay.
actually never met in that program, but we were there in the same time.
Okay.
So yeah, everybody had kind of been playing in bands like most of their life and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
there was a great,
Probably makes it a lot
yeah,
easier when you're trying to like portray like what you have in your brain and like put it, you know what I mean? Because they have like some experience of how this works. Where it's
yeah.
like if they were novice in this, you're like, okay, this is what they're doing. They're like,
I feel like I was the novice in the band, so
yeah,
everybody's been very patient while I kind of have learned.
that's good though, and like especially being like the front woman of a band too. It's like, do you think that that carries like more exposure? And kind of with that exposure, the responsibility of you because you're like the first person they see.
Yeah, we're definitely like we're democracy.
Yeah,
We're a team.
exactly.
Yeah,
But
we like
you
to
know,
talk about like I make some decisions for the band, obviously, but
yeah,
we try to talk about everything as a
yeah.
group.
Do you find like being a front woman like more expectation, or do you find like you're easy on yourself to know that it's like you're part of a band. You know what I mean? You're not giving yourself like too much expectation to be like the voice of the band. If that makes
Yeah, like I'm still learning, and like as I've said that before, like I'm very like introverted, and it's taken me a long time to realize like I need to front the band on social media, and I need to be like the face. I need to be the person who talks when we do reels and stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it's taken me a long time to be like, okay, fine, I'm gonna make TikToks and stuff like
Right.
that.
Right. Yeah. And even just the whole like, and we've talked about it in previous discussions, just the whole idea of like content creation in general is like outside of making music, like like
Yeah.
that's a whole nother thing. We saw this performance and now we're kind of diving into your musical journey and where this started. And do you want to just like briefly take us through like the inception of your musical journey?
hmm I guess I always knew I wanted to do music in some way, shape, or form. So I got my first Rise Against CD when I was 12, and I was just like hooked. I was like, that is what I'm gonna do one day. And so I went to McEwen University for jazz guitar. And people told me if you could play jazz, you could play anything, and that turned out to not be true at all. When I started trying to play metal, I was just like, this is not the same thing. This is a completely different skill set. So I actually ended up walking away from music for a while. You know, life gets in the way, and I was focused on my career. And then during the pandemic, I realized like I really miss music. Like that's what I was supposed to do with my life. Like why am I not doing this?
Right.
And then I just I took a songwriting class from Berkeley, and then that's when I started writing music finally. And so that's when like a lot of those songs ended up becoming like Valley of Despair songs for the line. So
Is songwriting like very technical in nature? Do you like
it's
when you took that course where you're like, oh, there's like a lot of things that I didn't know had anything to do with songwriting?
N- really actually like I read so many books on songwriting that was all just like it was all just bullshit.
Yeah.
Like it was just like you need to feel your feelings, you need to do this, but nothing told me how to write a song.
Like structure wise.
Yeah, and then I actually watched there's a YouTube channel called Gear Gods, and he does a songwriting series, and he did an interview with Matt Hafey, who's the frontman of Trivium. And he had 20 minutes. He's like, I have 20 minutes and then I have to go be a dad. So I'm going to give you the best information. And he was just like, listen to songs, figure out how they work, technically break them down in your head. How do they work? How are they put together? And I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So I started doing that. And then I realized like, you really just need to start and you just need to technically break it down. Like there's no secret to it. You just need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah, that interview like changed my life.
And, and that kind of like, and metal was kind of always like your preferred genre, right? Like you were always into metal,
Yeah, well, I actually grew up on punk rock.
punk rock.
So I wanted to be a punk band, and then I wanted to be a slightly heavier,
Right.
and then I wanted to be a prog band, and then it just turned into just kept giving them heavier and heavier songs.
Yeah.
So I think we know what we are now, but
And it's probably like an ongoing thing of like evolution of like it depends on the music you're releasing, it depends on the opportunities you're given and stuff like that, where it's like it's always this like constant like readjusting or like refocus where you're like, are we still doing the same thing we want to do, or is it this or is it that, or
yeah,
right?
it's
Uh,
always changing. It's constantly evolving.
And that kind of brings us into like this idea because it's very interesting. You talk about like how someone says like you need to break down the music, you need to like see what other people are doing and find out the structure.
Mhm.
But then we kind of on the other side of it, where we kind of talk about like you being a vocalist and how like you had to find your own voice
Mhm.
in order to, start getting in your own
Yeah.
lane. So how do you merge that too of like I want to copy people for like the statistical, the like the format, the structure, whatever it is, but like I don't want to copy their voice.
Yeah, well, I would say you don't want to copy anything.
No, but like yeah, but sorry, I might have said that wrong, but I meant in terms of like you're trying to follow like a positive trend, right? You're like, oh, this works.
Yeah, well, I think what helped me was realizing like I used to do like voice lessons, and I'd always just pick a song with like a higher note, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm going to try to hit that note and try to hit it in that person's tone of voice." But when I was songwriting, like I realized I was hearing like melodies, but I was picturing another singer singing them with like the timbre of their voice. And even with the harsh vocals and the screams, like I'd hear like a male vocalist in my head doing the screams. And I try to do mine. I'm like, "Oh, that sounds different. That's not what I envisioned." So I really had to learn like what my voice was to write music that suits my voice.
and then be comfortable to also like
Yeah.
perform it, like because you'd probably feel some sort of like imposter syndrome or something, like if you didn't feel comfortable with like the type of like music you were creating, or you're like,
Hmm.
this really isn't me, then you go to create this, like you go to perform it, and it's like you're probably doing a good, you're still doing a good job, but you're not giving it like all of you, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like a lot of things too is just like knowing your voice and like knowing your abilities and like writing within those. Like, don't like we have a song that I wrote with an insanely high belted note, and I hold it out for like a whole bar. And now I'm whenever I sing that, I'm like, why did I write that? Like,
Yeah.
this is really hard to do live, which is good because it challenges me. But I'm like definitely need to think like what is comfortable for me to sing in, and what can I like give the audience my best performance of when I write.
When you do look at writing and stuff, does a lot of consideration come to how that translates in a live performance?
I'm definitely starting to think more about that now than I was when I first started writing. When I first started writing, I was just kind of writing like whatever I wanted and whatever sounded good on the recording. But now that I've kind of done the thing and like we do our weekly jam, that I need to think to like my vocal snap.
Hmm.
So like our we're starting to write some stuff on seven string, which is in a lot lower tuning, but it gives me a little bit of like a vocal break too when I know I have those like really high belting songs bounced in. Having something that's a little bit more comfortable is kind of like a nice breather for me.
Yeah, yeah, and going into that in terms of like creating songs is like, because I have it written down here of like songwriting process, more of a jam session, or is it more of a like a structured thing to do, or is it more of like we're just gonna riff for a few hours or
Mhm.
whatever it is, and like if we like what we're making and we can like kind of like knead
Yeah.
it out, or is it more of like this structured, like, okay, square one,
Yeah, I'm a very like structured, organized person. So I would say that I like template the songs. So
right?
I'm like, here's kind of the basic song. This is what I'm thinking, a verse or a chorus or a bridge or something. And I'll kind of have like it roughed in. And then I don't write leads anymore. So our guitarist, like TJ Buggins, will just go in and he'll, sorry, I think I said his name weird. I'm gonna, like, so I kind of have the songs like roughed in. So then our guitarist TJ Buggins will go and he'll like layer over all the leads and stuff like that. And like
Okay.
that stuff happens while we jam, like the experimentation with the overlapping stuff that kind of ties it together. Like that'll happen in a jam setting. But for the most part, it would be chaos if we just riffed for several hours.
Yeah, like there's no, yeah, you kind of have to like, you have to like call in the energy at some point and be like, okay, this is good, but we
Yeah.
need to focus it in some sort of thing in order to like get things done, right?
Yeah.
Um, and we talked about it before, where, and I'm sure like over time it probably like the level of like creative process probably gets more like intertwined, where it's like, was it used to be like it was a couple voices in the room at the start, where now everybody's like gaining their comfort level, where
Mhm.
like everybody's able to share like, oh, I think this would work better, I think that would work
Yeah,
better, or
I think
maybe
we
we
have a
change this,
very like
right?
open communication about, oh, hey, that was really cool. You did that. You should remember that. Or like, yeah, maybe if you do this, I'm gonna do this. So, yeah.
And did you find like building that comfort level also like heightened like the quality of the music you make,
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
right? Like I always like, you're only gonna get like the best out of people if you put them in like the best situation, right? So
Mhm.
it's like, I could only imagine, you know what I mean, trying to make, and like say if I'm playing guitar and I can't play drums, it's like, well, how am I gonna tell this person how to,
Yeah.
you know what I
I
mean?
think
Like,
like our bassist, Joel Croft has said like for him, like the music is never done. Like even if it's released or whatever, he's like, I'm always thinking like, how can I make this better live or something like that? Or maybe I
right.
could play this different. And I think that's cool because it like gives a different experience than the album experience as well.
Was like, did you find you were learning a lot from your bandmates and that was like making you a better performer over time? We were like, oh, never thought about that.
Oh, for sure.
Like I never
For
thought of
sure.
it
I
that
was like, oh, I
way.
never thought to play that riff that way. Like that's really cool or something
Yeah,
like
and then you're
that.
like,
Yeah.
shit, it's putting me on some game. Uh, um, so yeah, like I I think it's amazing. Like people that make music, I think it's amazing. I'm a huge like music guy, So like anytime I can get in the process with someone that creates music is amazing. Um, Kind of going into this like fronting and band, and we kind of talked about it briefly, but like what what do you find there's like techniques you use to like make sure you're like commanding the stage and showing like the audience that like you have like a level of comfort or like if that makes sense.
hmm I think just having the material like well rehearsed. It's like never going in like without having practiced it or something like that. Like never wing it.
Yeah.
Like you need to know what the notes are. You need to know what you're gonna hit. Like you need to know it. Like it can't just be muscle memory. You need to like know in your brain, and that'll help you on stage as well. And then I can't be thinking during a song, oh, what's the next lyric or what's this? Like it's just knowing it and having that well rehearsed, like with your band and
And it's funny you say that because I interviewed a mental health counselor and I asked him the same type of thing about like pregame rituals because
hmm
he does a lot of interviews with different clients and stuff. And I said like, how do you like disconnect from like your own shit to getting into their shit? And he said something very interesting and it kind of like the same
hmm
thing you said there, where it's like the job's been done way beforehand. Like
hmm
if I didn't do the hard work before this 5-15 minutes, like yeah, I'm gonna do like my vocal exercises stuff, but that's all built in
hmm
through like repetition and like trusting the process and stuff, right? So it's very interesting of like it's it's like kind of taboo to ask if someone has a pregame ritual because
hmm
it's like it kind of takes away from all the work that you've done.
mm
It's like so what the X amount of years that I've been like practicing and this and making
hmm
it's like all of that comes to show before the 15 minute
Yeah, for sure.
you
There's
know
a
what I
lot
mean?
that goes into even getting onto stage for the first time. Like we were jamming for like 6 months before we had our first show, and then it was like another year before we had another show. So
Right.
there's been a lot of practice and prep between getting on
And
stage.
what was like the process from like the first performance to like getting yourself up? Like what were the learning lessons that you had from like your first performance as a band? Like the were there key takeaways of where you were like, oh, well, maybe we weren't ready for this, or maybe we needed to
hmm
adjust this. Like what were some key takeaways that you felt?
I feel like we're always learning, and unfortunately, the only way to learn is to make mistakes.
Of course.
So it's just like getting in the reps and getting in more shows, and then every show I learn something new, and I'm like, learn. And you also learn how to fix technical problems on stage and things like that. If you're like, oh, my guitar didn't work here, why didn't that happen, or whatever. But that's just stuff you can put in your toolbox, and it gives you more confidence the next time.
How important is it to have like how important is it to a successful show to have like the sound guy? Like
Oh,
the
that's
guy,
so
yeah,
important.
right?
It's
Like
so
I think
important.
that's one thing that people don't consider, where it's
Yeah.
like,
It really depends on the band because in some genres of metal, like you're getting up there and if you're a jam band, maybe you don't need ear in-ear monitors or whatever. But depending on like our band sound setup, we're running backing tracks and we have a click in our ears. Like we have a lot of like sound requirements, I would say, which makes our performance better. But if the sound system isn't up for it, then we definitely have to
mm,
adjust.
and do those kind of, do you guys ever like try to like train yourself to like work in case that doesn't like in case like you know what I mean, like you're kind of knowing that like this is gonna aid us but like we can't necessarily lean on it.
Yeah, we run our set list without click sometimes to be like, okay, like we're so used to having this safety in our ear, but if we don't, like we need to also be rehearsed that we don't have it. So stuff like that and especially monitoring systems, like knowing that we can go with wedges versus our in-ears is also
And did you find that like starting off as a band that like did you find that like these technical like amenities were always available, or did you find that like based on like the level and the growth that you were at, like sometimes the venues just didn't have like the capability?
yeah, we've run into that for sure.
Yeah.
We have like the luxury in Edmonton. There are so many great venues and so many great sound people in the city. So we've been pretty lucky at home. On the road, we definitely have learned that we need to kind of like dig into, okay, like what is the sound system here? Like that's something that needs to be like figured out ahead of time for sure.
Right. And like do you find that like having like prior experience, you have like more of like an understanding, or even just like a level of like patience with like working, you know what I mean? Like it's like you have like another layer of like respect, or like admiration, because you're like, I know exactly what you're doing,
Oh yeah.
you know what I mean, where you're like,
I used to do sound like at a church as well, so I was used to like little old ladies coming up to me being like, "You need to turn the bass
yeah,
down."
and you're
So
like, you have no idea. Sit down, enjoy your hit.
I'm like, the bass level is fine, thank you very
Yeah.
much. They're like, "Can you turn the drums down?" I'm like, "The drums are only one level."
Yeah, yeah.
I
You
can't.
do anything else, lady.
Yeah, but no, like I have massive respect for all the sound people that we work through, and they're just
Yeah.
trying to do their best job and get
Oh
the
yeah, I saw
performances
that
on
guy
air.
huffing it up and down the
Yeah,
steps.
Meg
Like,
did an amazing
yeah,
job.
he was on the Stairmaster for most of the concert, just huffing it up and down those steps.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would definitely be a tough job, and only because you're like, your performance is solely going to be based on how well I can support your performance. If that makes sense.
Yeah,
where
we
it's
all
like,
work together.
yeah. Another thing too that I wanted to talk about, where we talked about like the community aspect of like the metal genre, and but explain to me what your experience of being like a female lead in a band has been like, and how like you've kind of seen that experience, where like we talked about in some genres, like there's kind of like a preconceived notion, or kind of like a niche they want to like put females in. How have you seen that is like different with the metal community, or how have you felt that like female leads are like
Yeah, I mean, within Edmonton for sure, like everybody's been so welcoming to us. Like nobody has ever said, "Oh, you're female, you shouldn't be on stage." Like everyone's like, "Fuck yeah!" Sorry, am I allowed to
No,
say
no,
that?
yes, yes, of
People are
course.
like, "Fuck yeah!"
Yeah.
Like those screams are so cool. And like somebody tagged me after our show and was like, hashtag Scream Queen, and I was like, "Oh, thank you." But yeah, like people have been so welcoming to us. Like it's crazy. Like there's definitely like just in terms of numbers, there are less females doing like what I do. There are less females playing guitar. There are less there's a lot of like female singers, not so many like screaming and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And on bills, like definitely a lot of the time there's maybe just one female fronted band, but sometimes like we put together like all female fronted band nights and stuff like that, which is really
Okay.
awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, nobody's given us a hard time or anything. Everybody's been super welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, I that was one of the things that you saw, like even when it started to get like, there were certain parts of that show where like people were getting into like some sensitive subject, and you could see like the rallying of support. And that was like, it was really nice to see, where you were like, depending on the room you're in or the crowd you're in, like some of the things that you discuss might not have got received the same way, and it takes like a lot out of a person to like divulge that to, you know, a room of 100 people, about what Sugar Rush was talking about with their bandmate and everything that happened in that, where yeah, I think like getting up there and trying to have that connection with an audience, as well as like maintaining your respect with the audience,
Yeah,
is
it's
huge.
important to have the representation as well from female fronted bands. Like when I grew up, like in the music that I listened to, there weren't any female artists really that were in the music that I wanted to listen to. And so it's really important just to have the representation on stage, so that like especially at an all ages show, when you see like a little girl like seeing like a woman on stage being like, and be like, "Oh, maybe I can do that one
Yeah,
day,"
it's
you know?
very
Like,
inspirational. It's like, it's showing, it's like, it's
yeah,
possible.
it's not just a boys club.
Yeah, exactly. Um, let's see here. Let's get into your so your performance at Rec Room was, you guys were featuring a lot of your EP. Congratulations again for releasing your EP. What was when you released this EP, Burn at the Stake? It's on Spotify, iTunes. Be sure to check that out. Value to Spare EP out now. Burn at the Stake. I kind of on like a generated. Now I lean a lot on like AI generated stuff,
Yeah.
in terms of like, I'll put in like all my questions, and I'll say like, structure this in a way that like makes the most sense flow wise.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, I'm still giving it my own thoughts, but I'm asking it like, fix the grammar, fix the way that I structured the
Yeah.
sentence. Like, but sometimes I've leaned on it way too heavy, where I'm like, hey, go research this person, write me a whole interview.
touch something, but this stopped.
Coffee break.
Yeah, the EP Burn at the Stake. Let's talk about that. Talk about like your style through creating that EP and how that worked for you. Were you trying to tell a story, or were like this a mix of emotions?
Yeah, so every song has a different emotion that I'm trying to convey. And sometimes it's not necessarily like my story that I'm trying to convey in the EP, but it's definitely like an emotion that I've felt. And that's what like all writers do when you read a book and they talk about like the themes or whatever, or, like maybe the sunset represents this, or, I used to always think that was crap. I was like, I bet the sunset is just a sunset. But no, like going through the creative process of,
We previously talked about it, where the storytelling through the Salem witch trials, and you alluded as well that like you weren't through the Salem witch trials, but you use like personal emotions and stuff you felt to like portray the same type of experience or like emotion of telling that story. So kind of just bring us through like your inspiration and like wanting to tell that story, and how you kind of gauged like the low storytelling to then like Rise from the Ashes, where you were able to then have something about reinvention coming through after having like Burn at the Stake, where it's something kind of, a little bit more darker.
Yeah, so I wrote Burn at the Stake, and like the emotion in it is definitely, there has to be something that you connect to as an artist that makes the audience feel it when you sing it. Otherwise, you're just singing words and they don't matter. So there's definitely like that song has a lot of themes of like injustice and like anger. And I have never been burned at the stake. I mean, I'm living proof. I have not.
Yeah.
Nobody's ever chased me down the street with a pitchfork. But yeah, that song had a lot of like angry emotion in it that I was exploring and like that I was feeling. But then I wanted to have like a positive note, and I never want to leave people just with just with like hopelessness, like despite the name Valley of Despair is our band. Like I don't want, like, you don't have to be hopeless and you don't have to feel despair. Like it's a choice. And so I chose to write the next song, Rise from the Ash, and focus on a different emotion, and I wanted to focus on determination. So that song, it's kind of like, okay, you've been burned at the stake, now rise from the ash, but it loosely follows. It's not really like telling, like, it's not a concept album that is telling a continuation of a story. But that song was actually just about how hard it was to get my band started, and I just dressed that up with a whole bunch of really epic metaphors, but that song was just me talking to myself and be like, keep going.
Yeah. You kind of go into talking about like your inspiration with like video games and books. Tell me about an experience where like a certain book or video game like inspired song creation.
Yeah, I've definitely written a couple songs that are based on video games. So one of them that is not released is called Carrion Crows, and it's I have a crow tattoo, and when I got the tattoo, I was like, this is a metaphor for my life. And then when I wrote the song, I was like, this is a metaphor for my life. And it took me like I kid you not, like 6 months to realize they were the same metaphor for my life. Mm-hmm. And that it was actually like inspired by Robin Hobb's Realm of the Elderlings. So that's my favorite book series, and if you read through all 16 books, you can meet the character that one's about. Yeah. No one's going to read through
16 books.
Yeah, and then Edge of Time off the EP is actually about Final Fantasy.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Nice. And how much, like, do you find, like, you're a big, like, I'm a big video game guy, so, but it's more of, like, I'm more video game in, like, sports, Call of Duty stuff, and then you have, like, people that are video games, like, the Ocarina of Time.
RPGs. Yeah, I grew up on Ocarina of Time.
Yeah, like stuff like that where it's like a totally different. Now, do you find that like you got, like, did you find that like the way video games told stories, did you find like you were able to like take that and like use that in a way to like tell your own type of stories?
I think like video games are actually like the earliest influence on music for me. I started playing video games when I was probably like 6 years old. Mm-hmm. So, and like Final Fantasy always has like super epic overarching like stories, but also soundtracks that support the story. And like even like Final Fantasy 9 is my favorite of all time. Actually, Edge of Time is about Final Fantasy 8, but in 9 it's just the soundtrack is like there's certain themes for certain characters that then come back and are played by different instruments. And I really love that, like the motifs of that, like coming back. Like it's just, I think I learned so much subconsciously from video games, just from that.
Right. And then kind of like how certain sounds attach to certain emotions and how to like elicit like certain responses. And like I think when you're playing through these games, you can kind of see that it's happening in real time, where you're like, oh, I see how that like affected me, because like I felt a certain way when like I was playing as this kid, and that's what they wanted me to feel. Right. That's I think like even games like God of War, just like the amount of storytelling, and they're making an actual movie, and Christopher Judge is going to be the main character. They were like, who are we going to cast as Kratos? And they were like, well, obviously Christopher Judge. Like, what? He's the guy in the game. But games like that just have like amazing soundtracks and stuff. I could definitely see how that would like create like examples. Weirdest thing or like experience that sparked like writing? Did you have anything that happened in your life where you were like, oh, this will turn into a good song?
See, I don't think I have anything weird yet, but our guitarist messaged me in the middle of the night and was like, the metamorphosis of a queen bee is so metal. And I looked it up. I was like, well, that is pretty metal. So we're like, we need to write a song about this. You might see that in the future.
Yeah, there you go. That's amazing. The way people come up with songs and stuff like that, and then like even like having songs that were like, I'm super fans of listening to like Foo Fighters or something. Then you see them on like an interview and they're like, oh, this was what the song's about. You're like, no shit. You're like,
how did that come about?
Yeah, you're like, no shit, eh? That's definitely amazing. Kind of like wrapping this up, and kind of going into like some final thoughts. What do you guys have next for the band? What do you guys have planned next? Do you guys have any things in the pipeline right now?
Yeah, we're actually flying to Yellowknife May 31st for Steadily Deadly Fest. So that's our guitarist's hometown. So we're really excited. It'll be our first time flying with our instruments and stuff like that. So it's really awesome.
Yeah.
And then we're playing Armstrong Metal Fest on July 12th in BC. So that's gonna be an amazing weekend.
Do you find that a lot of your like gigs and events are like, do you find that you get like a concentration of a lot in like Alberta, Edmonton area, and then you're getting these little, or do you find it's like the opposite, where you get like some events here and there, but a lot of your bigger events you're going to like Yellowknife?
Yeah, I mean, because like we're still like in the progression of like building our band, so like we've definitely built like our base at home, and like we can kind of play here like every month if we'd like to, but we've been trying to focus on the out of town shows as well, because if you focus too much on your market, like you're not going to grow. You need to get out there and see the world.
Exposure,
and
like
for sure.
And how much is it for you as like representing the band? Like, how much do you consider like brand exposure and like selling? Because I know before you guys were performing at the Rec Room, you were saying how like a band at your level, like you're not making much off streams and stuff, and a lot of way of like supporting the band would be through like buying merch. Is that through of like giving like the community and the fans like something tangible that they can like have to show their support instead of like donating, for example? And how much are you doing it to like represent like an identity or a brand of like, well, I just want people wearing my logos?
No, I mean, I don't want people to buy our merch if they're not going to wear it, if they're not going to enjoy it, but yeah, a lot of people buy it because they know that it does support you, and that is exclusively what funded like our trip to BC. Like we played 3 out of town dates, and like that was the only reason that was financially viable, was people supporting us, coming to shows and stuff like that. And like I don't say that as a way to be like, yeah, come buy your merch. I say it to say thank you, because I really appreciate it when people when they support me when they come to shows, especially when people that I know aren't really into metal. Like I have some friends who will come out, and I know they're not really metal fans, and like that means the world that they're there to show up for us, and Edmonton really shows up for its bands.
And the thing that you can tell too is it's like a how do I say it, reciprocal? Is that it's like the support that they're giving you, they're getting it return in tenfold from like the level of work and effort that you put into the craft, right? It's like I'm not going to watch someone like stumble their way through a set. Like they're not only supporting you, and they're getting way more than what they're paying for in terms of like the heart and like the level of like passion into it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's where, like, at a band your level, like that's where you're gonna see the amount of support is like just through that like authenticity, where people can be like, I was gonna support you either way.
Yeah, I mean, like, we want people to see us like as a band, like in like our brand identity, but also as people. Like, we're people and we're making music that we care about, and like that's like people want to connect and people want to go to show and have fun, and you know, they want to catch up after the show and stuff like that. So yeah, we just want people to feel like a connection when they're there.
So you already kind of went through the shows in 2025. Any other shows that you haven't previously? So Yellowknife, BC.
Those are all of our announced shows for right now. Yeah.
And another thing was like, what outside of the band or on like the same trend of the band, but like what do you have in terms of like personal goals for yourself, and like how you're like working on like whether that be a better vocalist, whether that get better at like managing your time with the band or whatever that is, but what are some like personal goals that you have for yourself?
Just to be continuously improving. I think like there's always something more that I could do better. I could always be a better guitar player. I could always be a better vocalist, a better performer. I guess for songwriting is I try to keep in mind, like I kind of go through these like little fear periods where I write a song and I was like, oh, this is the best song I'm ever gonna write. I'm never gonna write a better song like this. Oh my god! And then I'm like, Kate, chill.
Yeah.
And I'm like, and my songwriting teacher at Berkeley was always like, your best song is ahead of you. So it's like always look forward, and like I don't know, like always there's always something more around the corner.
It's funny you say that, because Matthew McConaughey had a quote when he was interviewed once, and he said, like, they asked like, who's your role model? And he's like, my role model is always like the 10-year version older of myself. He's like, and I just asked myself, would my older version of myself be proud of what I was doing and where I'm going?
Yeah.
Right? So whether that be 5 years, 10 years, but it's like the idea of like, you're your own you're your own measurement of achievement, right? It's not necessarily like how this wells. It's like, as long as you can look back and be like, yeah, I was like, yeah, I fucking did that shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And then you can look back and then you're like, I fucking did that shit.
Yeah.
Fucking
did
right.
The best. Yeah,
right?
Did the best you could.
But yeah, with that, thank you for coming out. If there's anything that like you would want the listeners to get out of this episode, what do you think it would be?
Oh man, I feel like I tripped up on this question last Sorry. Give me a second to think.
No. Take your time.
Oops. Sorry.
That's all right.
I don't know if my first thought is stay metal.
Yeah.
Stay metal.
Stay metal.
Yeah.
I think that's more than appropriate. Stay metal. And for anybody that thinks they don't like metal, you will like it. Coming from a naysayer myself,
you just need to find your particular type of metal. And
like I did say earlier too, you can't knock people's skill. It's like, it might not be the style of music, it might not be like the sound you're trying to hear, but then you look and go like, yo, they're killing it. This has been another episode of Solo Spotlight with Cheryl, the front woman of Valley of Despair. I thank you so much for coming out. Don't forget to check out their EP, Burn at the Stake, live on all music streaming platforms. Don't forget to check out the live events that we talked about earlier in this episode, and we will be putting all of the social media links, as well as links to your EP as well, for people to just have access to check that out. As well, don't forget to subscribe to Spare Bedroom Studios, like, subscribe, share, comment on what part of the episode you like the most. I'm your host, Ryan MacDougall, and see you next time.